can we listen to Hamilton? Mama, can we listen to Ariana Grande? Mama, can we listen to Alicia Keys? Mama, can we listen to Maroon 5?
Hey there. Are you tired of listening to Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift every time you're in the car with your kid? Honestly, no, never, because I love you, Tay-Tay and Gaga. But for the sake of this video, yeah, let's listen to something else. Hey everybody, I'm Nikki, and today we're just going to talk about a bunch of podcasts that I like to listen to in the car with my daughter when we're not listening to Hamilton. So a lot of them are science podcasts, as you might guess, but I did throw a few in there that are non-science. Non-science, not nonsense. But why? But why? Mama, but why? But Why is a podcast where kids can submit questions and then they spend an entire episode discussing those questions. So they have guests and experts come to talk about things like, are jellyfish made of jelly? Or why can't kids vote? All right, Kid News. So Kid News is really cool because it is hosted by journalists who are moms, and they write these kid-friendly newscasts. And at the end of the newscast, they ask questions. And so the kids get really excited about answering those questions at the end. So when this podcast comes on, they really perk up and pay attention. So it's really, really great for getting them engaged and thinking in the morning. And it ends up being really fun for them. Forever Ago. So Forever Ago is a history show, and unfortunately they only have 8 episodes, but they take really deep dives into subjects like video games or sandwiches. If you like listening to Australian accents, I would recommend listening to Science Versus. It's a podcast hosted by Wendy Zuckerman, and they talk about things like glowing platypuses, and they discuss what's fact, what's not, and what's somewhere in between. So back in the Middle Ages in Italy during the Black Plague, they used to separate the sick people from the not sick people for 40 days because 40 days had a lot of biblical significance. Jesus wandered in the desert for 40 days, and that's why Lent is 40 days. But in Italian, 40 is 40, and that's how we got the word quarantine. And I learned that from a podcast called Science Diction, and they talk about word origins and the science behind them. Is it better to be taller or shorter? This is one of the topics that they cover on the podcast Brains On. And Brains On is hosted by Molly Bloom, who has this really cute, kid-friendly, engaging voice that I think kids will really, really love. When the National Science Foundation agreed to fund a weekly science talk show, Science Friday was born. Now, Science Friday is hosted by Ira Flatow, and I don't know what Ira Flatow looks like, but he sounds like a guy whose name is Ira Flatow.
I'm Ira Flatow, host and executive producer of Science Friday.
The episodes are about 45 minutes long, and they talk about lots of different topics during each episode, some of which is currently in the news, and then others are kind of random, like hummingbird vision or, the moon lander, something like that. So if you are going to take, kind of a longer ride with your kid, that would be a really good show to put on. If you want a super energetic start to your morning, I would suggest listening to Wow in the World. Wow in the World is hosted by Guy Raz and Mindy Thomas, and they've got like characters and music and voices and sound effects, and it's all very like energetic and fast-paced and kind of loud, and kids really like it. And they cover topics like fingerprints and solar power and megalodons, stuff like that. And my daughter, really loved this podcast when she was in 4th grade, but now that she's in 5th grade, she thinks that, it's a little bit much. It kind of harshes her morning mellow. So, kind of keep that in mind. Smash, boom, best. So basically, this podcast takes two things, smashes them together, and then decides at the end which is best. So for example, like bats and owls, or super speed versus super strength. And they use science and the power of persuasion. And so each episode or each matchup is judged, and then at the end, the winner is declared by a listener. The Past and the Curious. First of all, brilliant name for this podcast because it happens to be a play on the title of one of my favorite movie franchises of all time, The Fast and the Furious. I know you're judging me right now. It's okay. But beyond that, it's a history podcast, and the host, Mick Sullivan, also writes and performs all of the music throughout the podcast. So Great American Songbook types of music, which is really cool. And they talk about things like how a place used to be one thing and now it's covered up by another thing, or talk about the Statue of Liberty. Honestly, I think it's kind of an all ages kind of podcast, especially for somebody like me who didn't really take to history in school. It kind of fills in a lot of gaps in my knowledge about history, but it also makes kids really excited about it because the music is really fun and exciting, and the way the story is told is really fun and exciting. Shortwave. So I think their tagline is science behind the headlines in about 10 minutes, which is exactly what it is. And I think my favorite part of this podcast is the host, Maddie Safaya. She got her PhD, so she is actually a scientist. And so she's really knowledgeable, but yet very accessible and, very down to earth, which I think makes what they are trying to teach and convey on this podcast really relatable and easy to learn, which I think is really nice and important. And they cover all kinds of really cool topics as well. I hope I've given you some fun new ideas on some podcasts to listen to. I am going to be leaving a link in the description for a list of all the videos that I have talked about today in this video, as well as a few more. And as always, guys, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate your time, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. And discuss things like, Hi guys, I'm Nikki, and today I am coming to you from my car because I procrastinated and waited till the very last minute to film this.